Greetings, my fellow YouTubers, and welcome to the Outlaw Feminist. My name is Blue, and this is where I make all my chick noises about all my weird old white lady business. This episode took forever to write because I thought I'd get super smart and get organized and write an outline at first, which I never do, and it created writer's block. On top of that, I tried some new technology hacks, namely the speech-to-text feature in Google Docs, which was also a fiasco, and I took another run at sobriety. Needless to say, I'm going back to my tried and true process of erratic, nonsensical, stoned keyboard ruminating. As a reminder, this channel, The Outlaw Feminist, is autobiographical and 100% free, and always will be. Poetry. Haha. I better not quit my day job. Please do me a solid and help me boost my algorithm by smashing that like and subscribe button, and we'll get into episode 9 of My Life with Outlaw Bikers, A Stripper's Tale. Houston, we have a problem. Right here on The Outlaw Feminist.
I see her rolling up, Uber black Cadillac, high heel boots and a sexy body full of tats. Baby's bad, oh baby's hella bad. After her there ain't no coming back. Wanna take a run at that.
Let's kick off this episode with the fam, shall we? Well, turns out the harmonious and flourishing family tree that Threeblock so eloquently described in great length over and over again was greatly exaggerated. The whole kumbaya shtick fell flat almost immediately. As soon as the specialty wrecker dropped Threeblock's truck loaded with my stuff and drove off, Threeblock split to take care of some club business. I'm going to pause this story to lay down some knowledge just for the old ladies and future old ladies. 1%ers do this phantom club business disappearing act nonsense whenever they want to skirt some shit. Those are the facts. Sorry, dude, but I'm on the girls' team first. Can't blame them though. I do the exact same thing given same opportunity. You know, we all would. To pacify my extreme ADHD, and because of the extreme guilt I felt for breaking my beloved's truck with my stuff, I unpacked the truck while he was gone on his Mongol mission. Let's take a second and backtrack for a minute. I need to correct a technical error made in the last episode. As I recalled these events, I remember it wasn't a U-Haul trailer that I pulled through the Luji-Siskiyous mountain pass. It was my car, my baby. A black, murdered out Audi A8L with my metal knuckles hanging from the rear view and black and white embossed clear across the top of the rear window. Thank goodness I finally sorted all this out. For a couple of episodes now, I have been racking my brain trying to figure out how my car got down there. I also couldn't figure out why, initially, I was cool with packing and unpacking a U-Haul trailer by myself. I don't remember the Threeblock packing, unpacking, hauling, general labor, general effort thing hitting my radar until much, much later. Anyway, back to it. I texted Threeblock to let him know I was done getting cleaned up. Soon after, Threeblock showed up and we headed to his folks' house so I could meet his parents and pay his dad back for that tow charge. This tow charge, man, I do not remember how much it was, but it was an ungodly amount. I do remember that much. One of many major financial hits I would take thanks to this outlaw relationship. Threeblock talked up his parents clear into their driveway. I was confident and felt a sense of joy meeting my future in-laws. Threeblock's mother answered the door. She took one look at me and her face told me that her brain was exploding. I was way too much for her to take in and process in the doorway. Through a tight, thin-lipped smile, his mother invited us in to sit down at the dining room table. Like the Terminator, I scanned the house for information. Quilted things, ruffled things, unremarkable, home interior party-shaped things, duck-shaped things, Jesus-shaped things, early American things, cross-shaped things, farmhouse chic, average intelligence, teaspoon displays, doilied things, family portraits, couples portraits, Christians, not diabolical. Every inch of this domicile was adorned with family values, Jesus, and other not fine but fancy things. The three of us enjoyed awkward, polite-ish chit-chat. And then, like all moms do when they haven't seen you in ages, Threeblock's mom began to give her son the family rundown. Daddy did something handy in the yard. This grandkid did this. Those grandkids did that. The church bake sale was a great success, etc. The moment Threeblock's sister's name came up in the rotation, Threeblock's mood changed and he began to bark slanderous accusations over the top of his mother's gleeful ruminations. Holy cow, turns out amber is a fighting word. Threeblock's mother looked embarrassed and vulnerable. I'm sure that I looked shocked. I did not see that coming at all. Threeblock had that same aggressive, overly righteous, disgusted look that he had when he assaulted my poor pot-dealing neighbor over the respect few, fear none tattoo. Threeblock's mother quickly regained her composure and changed the subject. She pulled out a small stack of paperwork and explained that one of the children had new medications added to their medication regimen. Threeblock feigned interest as the shaken grandmother further explained the details of his child's health care. My spidey senses spiked. As I look back, I realize I was familiar with this behavior. It's coy behavior. The bullying of the parents, blatant disregard of the children, and violent disdain for siblings and outsiders. This is the alpha male way of leadership. Threeblock's dad finally showed up. Thank God, another male. This environment was too estrogen rich since Threeblock was acting like such a bitch. Ironically, Threeblock's dad looked like an old biker that went super square. After a few pleasantries, Threeblock handed his father my personal check for reimbursement of the tow. He smiled and thanked Threeblock, and not me, for the check, and began a low-key ass-chewing of Threeblock for pushing his truck so hard. Why is this such a pussy-ass truck? Driving back to Threeblock's pad, I returned to every conversation we had had about his family, where he described church-going, decent people that supported him as a single father. He did not describe this overt tension and disconnect. As a matter of fact, the only really oddball story he had about his parents was about their decision to join a cult back when he and his sister were still very young. Threeblock rarely talked about this time. However, the few words that he did say were usually douched in disdain for his parents. I got the feeling something sinister happened there, but don't quote me on that. Later that evening, I was introduced to the big kids. They did not look at all alike, but were extremely good-looking children, as well as polite and well-mannered. They had been with their father for several years now, and from what I understand, the courts removed all parenting rights from the big kid's mother. She and her family were also not allowed to have any contact with the big kids. The little kids didn't look at all like their half-Mexican siblings. They were fair-haired and blue eyes, but were also very beautiful. One was quiet and one was so extra, but eager to please and very well behaved. The little kids were with their mother 50% of the time, and Threeblock and the big kids 50% of the time. 1 week on, 1 week off. This was Threeblock's week, so they were picked up and we were all introduced by dinner time. The chaos of the children in the twilight brought back memories of my son getting ready for the next day of school with one bathroom. It became evident that the big kids had a lot of adult responsibilities. Not only were they responsible for all the housework, caring for the free-range boxers, cooking and the laundry, each big kid was assigned a little kid to parent. Yet, that's right, to parent. You know, like preparing food for, feeding, cleaning, bathing, dressing, laundry, signing permission slips, toothbrushing, hairbrushing, entertainment, and homework, in sickness and in health. The whole parenting shebang. Threeblock essentially ignored his children, finding fun things in the garage, in his bedroom behind a closed door, or his favorite get-out-of-jail-free card. He'd take off to handle some very important club business. Yeah, this wasn't going to work for me at all. It's bedtime, and guess what? The little kids don't have their own beds, so guess where the little kids are sleeping? They would be sleeping with the big kids, like the goddamn Waltons, except we have boys and girls in bed together. A 6-year-old in a diaper, with an emotionally unstable teenager on a medication regimen. What is happening? My brain was tilting, trying to understand this 1%er style of child rearing. Monday morning came, and since one of the little kids arrived with the flu, and since all the adult relatives in Reno were unavailable, the sick child was left to convalesce with me, which was fine with me, but I felt stressed for the sick little diaper-wearing kid. I was a complete stranger. And this was the day I was introduced to Call of Duty, with the sound on and the blood on. all day. As the violent video game cycled through, I noticed the long, dirty fingernails and toenails, as well as the buildup of crusty dirt in the creases wrapping little player one's neck. My brothers had this same mom doesn't care funk when we were young. Later that night, I examined the other little kid for neglect. Same. Their teeth were also a mess. Nobody is washing these kids, and they have not been taught to do it themselves. These kids were sort of neglected. Ouch. So would you guys do me a favor? Smash that like and subscribe really quickly for me, and we will get into the North Valleys of Reno. So I wanted to walk you guys through the North Valleys of Reno a bit so you can get your head around this not so human friendly scene. The Threeblock Family Trust House was located on Mistletoe Lane in Lemon Valley. I think there's two other valleys, Panther Valley and Golden Valley, but don't quote me on that. The water came out of the faucets looking like gently filtered gray water and tasting like a quarry. I was accustomed to drinking water from the Bull Run Reservoir and right off Mount Hood. This would not do. I would die of dehydration if I didn't take drastic action. It was clear that the 2008 housing economy crash wreaked havoc on this community. Nearly every piece of property, 1-acre parcels of land with a manufactured home and a couple of outbuildings, were purchased in foreclosure or abandoned or for sale at unsellable prices. Convenience stores, all stores, had buckets of lip balm at the register as well as walls of bottled water. And why? Because the sun is exactly 13 inches from your skin at all times, even when there's cloud cover and it's freezing cold. Evidently, horses are cheaper to buy than they are to keep. When times were good, all these North Valleyians bought horses for their little financed hobby farms. When the economy tanked, these irresponsible, soon-to-not-be homeowners just turned the horses loose to roam free in the wild. So it was common to see herds of sickly, feral horses running across the hills of the valleys. What I remember mostly about the North Valleys, besides the dirt, was the not-so-incognito drug addiction. It wasn't uncommon to see a human being laying face down on the side of the road or standing against a pole or not against a pole in first position. My thoughts about Reno were always the same. Why on earth did any settlers stop here? This is definitely the kind of place where you just keep going, man. And nobody recycles anything. So this brings us to the newly formed Carson City Chapter of the Mongols MC. I need to give you all a little Mongols MC history first before we go any further. Nevada was just getting itself put back together after Operation Domino. Fun fact, circa 2008, Operation Domino was a multi-agency undercover investigation in the Reno area that led to 23 arrests and the seizure of 75 weapons and more than 6 pounds of methamphetamine. The same day, federal officials in 6 states rounded up dozens of other Mongols on sweeping criminal indictments that alleged crimes from drug sales to murder. Those arrests followed a 3-year undercover investigation called Operation Black Rain. I provided links about Operation Domino and Black Rain in the description below. Operation Domino, with the help of Coconut Dan, decimated the Nevada Mongol numbers. This was a problem because, unlike Oregon, Nevada is hot. The other team holds a lot of ground there and has for a long time. The Mongols needed numbers or they were going to lose Nevada altogether. Bomber 1%er was the president of the brand new Carson City Chapter of the Mongols Motorcycle Club. Bomber had lived in Reno for a very long time and had rich history and connections with the Nevada High Desert MC community. He was a retired lifetime member and former officer of the Branded Few MC, a Hells Angels support club. He was an elderly, very short man, and he really wasn't diabolical either. He was just an old biker dude. Most importantly, Bomber was easily manipulated. He was an uncomplicated guy in an ultra-complicated world. Mike was Threeblock's sponsor, or daddy, using the Mongol nomenclature. Mike was an older guy that had a piece of property that was, in typical North Valley fashion, financed to the hilt. According to Threeblock, Mike worked him pretty hard on his property when he was prospecting. I kind of call bullshit because I have never seen Threeblock do anything pretty hard. Pretty hard usually triggered one of them club business disappearing acts. Threeblock led me to believe that Mike had been put out bad due to some political stuff having to do with some not so legal stuff at a casino. I'm not really sure. Don't quote me on that. The details are pretty squishy. but he was no longer part of the chapter when I got there. Then there was Gary, the Carson City Mongol secretary treasurer. He was a skinny elderly dude that did not look like a biker by any stretch of the imagination. Gary was being threatened by the Vagos that they were going to come take his bike because he quit or couldn't pay the standard exit fee. So Gary called up his old buddy, Bomber 1%er, and asked to patch up with the Mongols, thereby protecting himself and his belongings. Also, Gary might not have been his name, but it's kind of an old dude name like Gary. Buddha was the newest chapter member. He had just patched in like a week before I had moved down to that hellhole. Buddha was approximately 98,000 pounds, in his mid-30s, and a former member of the Booze Fighters. He owned Fat Daddy's, a bar on 4th. Fun fact, Fat Daddy's is where Threeblock and I were married. You can watch the edited version of my wedding video here. But before you do anything else, please hit them like and subscribe buttons so my boobalicious stories of debauchery get to the darkest corners of the interwebs. Then there was Pops, but that's a story for a different time. The only other Carson City chapter member I can remember is the tattoo guy. I cannot remember his club name, but it was something like Lights Out or KO or something like that. Clearly, he punched somebody out with one punch and ergo his name. He came into the chapter without prospecting a few months before I met Threeblock on Facebook. He was a very terrible tattoo artist and did the very bad LMDM on Threeblock's knuckles. The young, punchy skin scribbler owned a home with a big man cave basement where the chapter used to hang out until his old lady put a stop to it. Threeblock was low-key, not so low-key jealous of this brother and everything about him. Then there was my man, the sergeant-at-arms of the Carson City Chapter of the Mongols MC. In just 14 months, Threeblock had gone from being a husband, homeowner, and father of 5 to being a full-patched member and officer in one of the biggest motorcycle clubs in the world. Threeblock describes his patching in ceremony as follows. It was pathetic. They called me to a meeting like I was going to be in trouble or something, and they were going to do something to me. I looked around the room and evaluated this sad group of old men. I could kill each of them with my bare hands. Then I was unceremoniously handed my top rocker, and we all shared one pizza, and then the whole thing was over inside an hour, because the old guys couldn't ride in the dark. By Saturday, I started eating and sleeping normally. My head was clear, and I could finally think straight. I had met all the kids, Threeblock's parental units, and the Carson City chapter of the Mongols MC. Threeblock didn't have any friends to meet except Mondo, and he had already grunted at me back in Portland. After this small handful of days, I realized there was a whole lot more going on with all this than I had originally and naively believed. Threeblock's parents were furious with their son, and they were worried about their grandkids. They were not at all happy that I was in Reno, living in their home, the family trust home. And there were real issues with his children regarding parenting, safety, entertainment, security, health, hygiene, healthcare, and education. The harmonious and flourishing family tree that Threeblock described in great length, mind you, was more like the Great Shoe Tree of Nevada. Yeah, the Great Middle Gate Shoe Tree is located on Nevada's Highway 50. Highway 50 is the gorgeous 287 stretch of asphalt that cuts through the center of Nevada between Ely and Fernley. In 1986, it was dubbed the loneliest road in America by Life magazine. The origins of why the tree became home of shoes, boots, sandals, stilettos, and every other type of footwear are varied. The Nevada Commission on Tourism says the tradition started following an argument between Oregon newlyweds, during which one tossed the other's shoes up in a tree. When they reconciled, the other reciprocated, and the tradition began. I've linked an article about the Great Shoe Tree in the description below. Much like that shoe tree, Threeblock's family situation was a tangled, littered mess. Sure, there were a few Jordans hanging off the branches, fuck, man. And the Carson City chapter seemed to be growing their own goddamn shoe tree. So in addition to meeting the whole fam damly and the Carson City chapter, I had also single-handedly moved the superfluous furniture from the living areas into the garage, arranged for recycling to be picked up and bottled water to be dropped off. And last but not least, I successfully fought for and started internet service at the blackout site that was our home on Mistletoe Lane, because I'd be damned if I was going to be in the junkyard desert without the internet. Nope. Not happening. As I watched Threeblock try to interact with the little kids in the yard, I got onto Yahoo Messenger and messaged my mom.
Houston, we have a problem.
As we continue on with this story, please keep in mind the context of what's going on more than the content. I'm trying to give you all an understanding of who the players are and how all of this works, and ultimately, how this just doesn't work. And with that, I'm going to wrap up this episode of My Life with Outlaw Bikers, A Stripper's Tale. In the next installment of this boobalicious series, I'll introduce you all to the Northwest Nomads, the Reno Chapter, the Washoe County Raiders, and the Reno Wreckers. We will also party with the Oregon chapters. And last but not least, Mom begins to clean house. If you haven't done it yet, please hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of my titty-rific chick noises. Until then, be safe, be kind, and if a motherfucker trips, baby, be dangerous.
I see her rolling up, Uber black Cadillac, high heel boots and a sexy body full of tats. Baby's bad, oh baby's hella bad. After her there ain't no coming back. Wanna take a run at that.